Yeah, guys, Hokage Pue here, and a true legend retires, man. Andres Iniesta, after so many years playing football, has retired, I think, at about 40 years old now. You guys, I just wanted to make a video. This is not going to be a long one, but I just want to give my thoughts on where Andres Iniesta ranks in my all-time midfielders, how he ranks as a Spain and Barcelona legend. But first of all, I just want to talk about Andres Iniesta as a footballer. Now, I'm not a Barca fan. I'm not a fan of Spain. In fact, Andres Iniesta has terrorized me multiple times, and I got to the point one time where I just had to respect it. I couldn't be an angry fan anymore, and I just had to sit there at times and watch Andres Iniesta work his magic. Now, when I think of Iniesta, guys, I am thinking, if I could give him like a name, like Thomas Muller has his Radam Tower, title, the interpreter of space. If I'm gonna give Iniesta, a title, what I think of when I think of Iniesta, I think of Iniesta as the master of tight spaces. Andres Iniesta can get out of any space at any time. He can control a ball in any space at any time on the football field. His close control, his ability to get out of the tightest spaces on a football pitch, I was just sometimes amazed. His little croqueta, his shift side to side, getting out, beating 2, 3 defenders with a simple one or two moves. At times, man, I'm just like, how do you stop this guy? Andres Iniesta is an animal. Master of tight spaces is how I would, think of Andres Iniesta. Obviously, he played in fantastic midfields at Barcelona. Him, Busi, Busi by I'm Busquets, Javi, like fantastic midfielders, and those guys in themselves are some of the greatest midfielders of all time. But Andres Iniesta just had something special about him. He was at his best quite literally unplayable. I think a lot of people say that, and it's a thrown about a little bit too much. People are saying right now Cole Palmer, and you guys, I love Cole Palmer, but they're saying, oh, Cole Palmer on his day is unplayable. No, I think there's not that many people you could say that on their day they're absolutely unplayable and untouchable. I think on this, Lionel Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo, all these guys, those kinds of names are, in my opinion, the unplayable guys on their day. Andres Iniesta is absolutely in that conversation. When Andres Iniesta was on fire, on form, it was over for you. If he had the ball, you couldn't get it off him. He was always creating things. He was always expressing his creativity on the field. And I think we also got to see the best of him because he was playing at his peak with the likes of Messi, Luis Suarez, Neymar, David Villa, Javi, Busquets, Pedro, Fabregas, all these players. And sometimes, man, I would just sit back and be like, bro, how does it get any better than this? In my lifetime, out of all the midfielders I've watched, he's the best midfielder. When I take into account players I didn't get to watch as much, Zidane, Maradona, Lothar Matthäus, all these guys, Modric, and guys I have watched, Pirlo, Modric. I just think Iniesta is better than all of them, bar Maradona. Now Maradona is a legend and everything, but when I'm talking about the modern era, at least, I think Iniesta is number one without a doubt. He is the best midfielder I've ever seen. I think he's greater than Zizou. I think he's greater than Pirlo, Modric, even my boy Bastian Schweinsteiger. The 4 or 5 years he was at his peak playing in midfield, Andres Iniesta, I think, is a better player than him. Toni Kroos, he's better than him. Like even Javi, I think he's better than his national teammate, his countryman Javi, his fellow countryman. So Andres Iniesta, man, what a player. Now that's a controversial take I just said there. Him being the greatest midfielder of, the modern era of football. But really think about it. Now, Xavi, I think this is an interesting conversation now. If we're talking about Barcelona, right? If we're talking about Barcelona, Messi is the, greatest, bestest, biggest legend in Barcelona history. Who's after Messi? Is it Xavi or Iniesta? This is a weird conversation because I would say it's Xavi. Why? Because when you think of what Barcelona was under Pep when they were so dominant, Xavi was the true conductor. He was the system. Xavi was the system of Barcelona at their very peak under Pep Guardiola. He was, and there's no way around it. And there's Iniesta, Messi, all the goals he was scoring, but Xavi was the conductor. Xavi was everything in that midfield for peak Barcelona. However, so for Barcelona, I think Xavi is actually the second greatest legend ever. In my opinion, I think it's Xavi, then it's Iniesta. But taking into account outside of those peak years of Barca, taking into account everything, their entire career, I think Iniesta, in terms of all footballers, in terms of Spain, no, actually, in terms of Spain, even, it's a close debate between Xavi and Iniesta. But if you took all footballers, taking everything to account their whole careers, I think Iniesta is the greatest, man. Because something we saw from Iniesta is he did not need to rely on Xavi to win anything. Once Xavi, you guys remember, MSN treble in 2015, Xavi was still there, but Xavi was a bench player. Xavi was retiring that season. He was leaving Barcelona that season. He didn't really have a role. He was replaced by Rakitic at that time. And Iniesta really in that season, that treble winning season, the dangerous MSN attack, that's when we got to see the leader, Andres Iniesta, the leader of the midfield. And, that proved to me that no, Xavi was not holding this guy's hand. He really was world class this entire time. He really was one of the greatest midfielders we're ever seeing with it right in front of our eyes. And that season, man, and even the 2 seasons after that, he was at Barcelona. He was still world class. He was still one of the best in the world, if not the best midfielder in the world. And you know, I was a high schooler back then. Even now, I feel like back then in high school when I was watching football, I wouldn't watch it with as much appreciation as I do now. Now that I'm in my 20s, um, and I kind of regret that now because I think back then I would have appreciated Andres Iniesta a much more. But my appreciation for Iniesta really grew more and more when he left Europe because we started to see that, barring Modric and all the actually, yeah, barring Modric, there hasn't really been a midfielder like them to have the influence to play at the level that he has, except for Luka Modric. And I just had, over the years, I've become really sentimental towards Andres Iniesta. I've become really fond of him. Um, but, Andres Iniesta, things weren't always great. Andres Iniesta had his L's. In his last years at Barcelona, he was there when they took the L against Roma. He was there when they lost to Atletico Madrid the next year after they won the treble. He was there. Don't get me wrong. Andres Iniesta has his L's. 7-0 against Bayern in 2013 Champions League semifinal. He was there on that field. He was a part of the team that got wiped 7-0 by the treble winning Bayern side. If I'm keeping it real, the 2010 World Cup, Xavi did play better than him overall. Yes, he scored the winning goal of the final, but throughout the entire, everything in the contest at that World Cup, Xavi was the better performer. And in that semifinal against Germany at the 2010 World Cup, Andres Iniesta and Busquets had actually ghosted in that semifinal. Xavi had to put up a masterclass in that game against Germany to facilitate a win there. It was really, guys, I always go back and watch that game every couple of years. What a game that was. Some people might think it was boring, but that game from Xavi, it was Xavi versus Bastian Schweinsteiger in that semifinal. It was a great, great game to watch. But Iniesta, he ghosted in that. And if it wasn't for Xavi, he wouldn't have got the opportunity to play in that final and score the winning goal. So Iniesta does have his L's. No player is perfect. Every player has his L's. Cristiano has his L's. Lionel Messi, Zidane, Ronaldinho, R9, Pele, Maradona, all Beckenbauer, everyone, Neuer, all these guys, they have their L's, right? But if you take into account all these players, Iniesta doesn't have that many L's. And that's just a testament to the teams he played in, but also I think it's a testament to how good he was for so long and how consistently he played at such a high level. I think Andres Iniesta kept a similar level of play. His peak level of play, I would say Iniesta was playing it from 2009 to 2017. He kept up consistently world-class level of play as a midfielder. And the funny thing about Iniesta too is that he looks like an old man. Even when Iniesta was 25 and beginning to bald, the guy looked like he's 50 years old. He looks like such a frail player, right? He doesn't look imposing. A guy like Modric, he looks scary, bro. Modric literally went through war as a child. He had to escape and he was an immigrant. Modric looks imposing on the field. He has a frame to him. Andres Iniesta looks, at 25 years old, looked like a 50-year-old man on Ozempic. That's what Andres Iniesta looked like at 25, but he was still so calm on the ball. You couldn't tackle him. Yes, he wasn't the strongest guy, but he knew how to use his body well. He knew how to maneuver within physical games, and that's what made him so great. His footballing ability, passing, dribbling. Even he wasn't that bad of a shooter, guys. He wasn't that bad of a finisher. His composure under pressure, tight spaces, close control. I mean, impeccable, almost second to none, so good, but also knowing how to use his body, his game IQ. Andres Iniesta's footballing IQ is also one of the greatest ever. So, Iniesta, man, now that he's retired, I think he's the second greatest player in Barcelona history, second or third. You could take your pick, him or Xavi. I think he's the greatest midfielder of the modern era. I always go in between him and Zizou, but Zizou, guys, he wasn't the most consistent player. He wasn't. And Iniesta played consistently at such a high level for like 10 years. I think Iniesta is the greatest midfielder in modern day football. He really is, and you know, bless him. He did leave the. I really think Iniesta, when he left to the J League, he's 40 years old now. He left like 5 or 6 years ago to the J League to Vissel Kobe. But guys, he definitely still had 1 or 2 more years at the top level. I think he was just tired of it. He wanted to get the bag. He went to Japan. He chilled out. He retired now at 40 years old, and I think we could definitely say now that he's retired, I think he is the greatest midfielder of the modern era of football. And wow, just what a player, guys. So Iniesta, true legend, and even you guys off the field, he's a saint. Dude, I swear on this Iniesta, I've never heard of any controversies about him off the field. He's a saint. He's been looking like a 50-year-old man on Ozempic for the past 15 years. But what a player. What a career. Andres Iniesta. Respect to you, man. And Spain, man, let's see. I don't think Spain will ever produce a midfielder like him again. I know the next generation is always supposed to get better, but how do you top a player like Andres Iniesta? I don't think you can. Spain, good luck with that. It's been Okage Poo, guys. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.